Welcome back for week 2 of the G Money Sports College Football Show. Um, I don't know if that name's gonna stay. It's kind of just a placeholder for now until I think of something else. So if you guys have a better idea, feel free to leave it in the comments. I want to start off this show by just huge thank you to everyone that watched last week. When I started this, I honestly had no idea what the interest level was going to be. I wouldn't have been surprised if 5 people watched it or 10. Got 100 views week 1, which is just awesome. It blew my expectations out of the water. So just huge shout out to everyone that watched. It was really cool for me to see everyone tuning in. I got a lot of texts, a lot of feedback, a lot of good stuff to work with. Has me really excited about where the future of this can go. I'm really excited. Kind of rejuvenated me, kept me going for this week, and I'm really excited to see what we can do. So going forward, I kind of want to make these a little bit shorter. Last week ran about 17 minutes. It's kind of a little longer than I wanted it to be. When I came up with the idea, I was thinking quick, like 10-minute hits. So try to keep it around 10-minute videos. So my picks I'm not going to go as in depth with them, but I will still give you good insight. And if you have any more questions, or there's a game I didn't cover that you want me to talk about, or you want me to give my opinion on it, just send me a DM on Twitter. That's probably the best place to reach me, or leave a comment on my YouTube. So with that being said, and then I had kind of a rough week last week, week 1. Like I said last week, week 1 is so hard to bet. You just don't know, especially with college. NFL is a little bit easier because you know all the players. College, there's so many new players coming in. There's so many teams to keep up with. It's really hard to tell what a team's going to look like, especially when they have a bunch of new people coming in. So you can't really get too down on yourself for week 1 losses. The most important thing for week 1 is watching the games and getting a feel for what the teams are going to be that year. So I think I got a lot of good information. I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm ready for week 2. The board, not as good this week. Not as many big games. There's a lot of good conference games last week. This week's a little bit more of the traditional cupcake games. There's a couple good ones, highlighted by the huge Iowa State game that will be insane. I live in Ames. I go to Iowa State, so Ames is going to be hectic this weekend, and I'm very much looking forward to it. That being said, let's get into the show. I have glasses on this week. Thought it might bring me some smart energy for my picks. We'll see. Maybe good luck charm. Also repping my G Money Sports merch. Shout out P&M Apparel for making these for me, and special shout out to Ryan for working with me and to make these. So getting into week 1. The very first pick is this Friday night. It's the Coastal Carolina plays Kansas at Coastal Carolina. Line's 25.5, favoring Coastal Carolina. I'm going to take Coastal Carolina cover. Kansas had the Super Bowl last week. They beat an FCS team. Hallelujah. They didn't expect to win that game, and that's really sad to say as a Power 5 school. Their fans were so surprised that they won the game that they rushed the field after beating South Dakota. Like I said, that game was their Super Bowl. They're not expecting to win any more games. On the road to Coastal Carolina, coming off a win that Kansas doesn't do very often. Expect them to get blown out pretty badly. They were in the ball like 40 times, and they're averaging 2 yards a rush, which might work against South Dakota when you can, kind of dink and dunk around them. But it's not going to work against Coastal Carolina, one of the best group of 5 schools in FBS. So 25.5, I feel like that's going to be a pretty easy cover. Shouldn't have to worry about that one too much. Moving on, got the South Florida game. Line's at 27.5, and I love Florida in this game so much. I faded South Florida last week and picked NC State. The cover is like 19.5, and they ended up winning 45-0. Easiest bet I've ever made, and I'm going to keep riding with it this week. Florida's a better team than NC State, I think, personally. They just have better recruits. They have better talent, better athleticism. And South Florida's garbage. Keep fading this team. I'm probably going to do it all year as long as it keeps paying off. And 27.5, honestly, 4 touchdowns, they might get them the first half. Moving on to the next game, got TCU and Cal. I love TCU this year. I've been really high on them. I picked their win total as one of my season-long plays. They're 9.5 point favorites against Cal. I really like TCU. They're bringing back Max Duggan, who I think is a really good quarterback, and he's from Iowa. Shout out the Iowa boys. 9.5 isn't too much, especially at home. I think the TCU fans are going to be excited with their team looking good this year. The defense looks solid. Gary Patterson's a really good coach. He shows that he can convert talent into NFL prospects, and he can convert talent into winning games, especially when he has experienced teams. Those experienced teams have gone on to do really well. So I think this year could be one of the years TCU is kind of my dark horse to be in the Big 12 championship game if Iowa State doesn't make it, which I really hope they do. So 9.5, I think that's going to be a pretty easy cover. Cal looked okay last week, but not great. Moving on to Buffalo versus Nebraska. Nebraska is 13.5 point favorites. I see no reason why to pick Nebraska on that 13.5. Take Buffalo plus 13.5. They're one of the best teams in the MAC consistently. They're bringing in a new coach and new players, but I think they still have a lot of carryover from the team that last year that ended up being the MAC championship game. I expect them to cover this plus 13.5, and I would not be surprised if they pull off the Buffalo money line upset. No, I just don't believe Nebraska at all until they prove that they can win games like this. I'm not going to pick them. That's simple as that. Going on to the next game, I got North Carolina and Georgia State. North Carolina is 25.5 point favorites. This one is really tough for me because North Carolina really hurt me last week. I had their minus 5.5 against Virginia Tech, and I also had as my lock North Carolina team total over 34.5. And if you followed that game, which I'm sure you did because it was one of the most watched games of all time, didn't cover either. It was honestly a pretty rough game. The North Carolina didn't look great. Sam Howell, for whatever reason, didn't look comfortable. It makes sense. They're replacing 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs that end up going to the NFL. So there's lost some talent there. But I do think they bounced back. I think Sam Howell is still a really good quarterback. And I think their defense was better than they showed. I don't think they're ready for week 1, but I think week 1 pissed them off. And I think Georgia State isn't a very good team, and I expect North Carolina to throttle them at home after an embarrassing loss week 1. Moving on to San Diego State, plus 1.5 over Arizona. I love San Diego State, plus 1.5. They're consistently one of the best Group of 5 schools. Arizona's consistently one of the worst Power 5 schools. I don't know why Arizona's favored. I mean, they're the home team, I guess. But the program has been bad for a while, and there's really been no signs of life. They got kind of shut down by BYU last week after starting hot, and BYU had a completely new team pretty much, starting a new quarterback. So I think last week was a good chance for them to win. I don't see them winning this week against San Diego State. Plus 1.5, take it. BYU, Utah, and the Holy War. That is a big game. This will show a lot what BYU's season is going to look like. And I think Utah is a pretty good team. They're like middle of the road Pac-12 team. But this game's huge, showing BYU what kind of team they're going to be this year. They're getting 7.5 points. I like that number. I think it's going to be within a touchdown, so I'm going to take that plus 7.5. Moving on to maybe my favorite pick of the week. I got Oregon State playing Hawaii in Oregon State. They're minus 11.5 point favorites, and I am taking the minus 11.5 all day, every day. Hawaii has been well documented that they're one of the best teams in the Group of 5 at home in Hawaii, mainly due to their team's traveling schedule. It gets all messed up because they have to fly all the way to Hawaii. But in the reverse, they're one of the worst away teams in college football. And I think Oregon State's actually sneaky good this year. They're bringing back a quarterback who's pretty solid. They won some big games last year, and that program's kind of moving in the right direction after being a laughingstock in the Pac-12 for a long time. Minus 11.5, I would take this all the way up to maybe 16.5, 17.5. I'd still be taking this. So at 11.5, I love it. Could be my lock of the week. We'll see. I'm going to wait to put that out till later, just so be on the lookout for that tweet. Another play I really love is in the Rutgers-Syracuse game. Rutgers is giving 1.5 points, and I think that's really low. I love Rutgers this year. Um, I think their new head coach, Greg Schiano, is bringing a lot of momentum to that team. He's a really good coach, NFL guy, if that name sounds familiar to you, coming back to college. Um, I love the 1.5 against Syracuse. I think Syracuse isn't a great team. I think Rutgers is way better. Rutgers put the hurt on Temple last week, and albeit Temple's not a great team, but it showed me a lot of things to make me think the Rutgers is going to be a good team this year. Syracuse is consistently like the worst team in the ACC. So I think Rutgers minus 1.5 is a play I really, really like this week. Going on to the NC State-Mississippi State game. Now, this is a sneaky big game. Mississippi State squeaked out a win at home against Louisiana Tech last week, and NC State dominated South Florida, as I talked about earlier. NC State is 2.5-point favorites, and so this game's kind of tough because it's kind of a trap game. Because you think NC State obviously is going to cover that 2.5, because of the way Mississippi State played last week, and it might be a trap, but I am going to take the bait, and I'm going to take NC State minus 2.5. They looked really good last week, and going back to last year, they had a lot of momentum going for them. And I think they're going to keep that up. I don't see any reason why they're going to lose against Mississippi State. I think Mike Leach is building something, but it's well documented that Mike Leach never has good defenses. And I think NC State has a pretty good defense. And if Louisiana Tech can almost beat them at home, NC State definitely can. So I'll take NC State minus 2.5. Moving on to my next pick, I got the Middle Tennessee Virginia Tech game. The line is Virginia Tech minus 20. This one was a little tough for me, especially since Virginia Tech hurt me last week. Kind of wanted to take them, but after looking into it, this is a huge trap game for them. For one, it's an early kick, so they're not going to have that night energy in the stadium like they had last week against North Carolina. It's a big downgrade in like competition. Middle Tennessee's has been a pretty good Group of 5 team though. I think they're giving some problems with that 20-point line. I like Middle Tennessee to cover the plus 20. Maybe Virginia Tech hurts me back-to-back weeks, but we'll see. And I have Minnesota and the Miami-Ohio game. Minnesota is giving 19.5 points. I'm taking Minnesota. I think their offensive line looked really good against a really good Ohio State defense, full of NFL prospects. Minnesota's going to be a really good team this year. It does hurt that their running back went down for the year, but I think with that offensive line, you can plug a lot of players in and be just as efficient. So yeah, Minnesota minus 18.5. I really like that pick. I think that probably is going to be one of the easier picks of the week. I think the minus 19.5 is because they lost week 1, but I think they put up a really good fight. If you watch that game, they were never really out of it. They hung really tight with Ohio State, and even in the first half, I was kind of questioning whether or not they're going to win. They looked that good. Unfortunately, the running back went down, and I think if he doesn't go down, it's a completely different game. But 19.5 at home. After that tough loss, I see them bouncing back, and PJ Fleck will have those boys ready to play. My last pick is going to be on the Iowa State-Iowa game, and I'm not going to pick a side. It's impossible for me to be biased or unbiased picking this game. 4.5, I will say, is a lot of points for the rivalry. A lot of games are decided by less than 4 points, so if I had to lean something, I'm leaning Iowa plus 4.5, but there's no way in hell I'm putting that on my card. So we're going to take instead the under at 46.5. This is always been a defensive battle game. 46.5 points is actually a lot more than I thought it'd be. I was thinking it'd be more around 42, and I might have still taken the under at 42. I think I see whoever wins is going to be like a 17-10 game, honestly. Give me a defensive battle. It'll be a really good game. I'm really excited. Game days and names. It's always a good time. So it should be a good one. But yeah, my play for that game is the under 46.5. So those are all my picks for week 2. I've got some good ones on here. I'm feeling really good about the board. My picks. Hopefully we can improve on what we did last week. Keep that good energy going. Clocking in about 15 minutes. Definitely longer than I wanted to go, but as I get into more of a flow, get the timing down and figure out kind of how to structure these videos. I think it went pretty well. Um, leave you guys with go Cyclones. Have a good weekend. Have fun watching college football. And, yeah, gamble responsibly.